Your boy, Dead on Dave, could not be here, for he did not trust in my self-righteous suicide. I will be your host. I am Dark Dave, and I will tell you about all of the things that we saw at Hell in a Cell, for it was gloomy and dark and painful, just like my existence. No. Dave, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? Shut up, Dave. What did I tell you, Dark Dave? Shut up, Dave. Get on your meds. Too much lithium, buddy. Too much lithium. Hold on. Can you believe the nerve of that guy? Jesus. I can't even believe it. All right. Look. Hey, guys. What's going on? It is your boy, Dead on Dave. I am here. Don't worry. We got rid of Dark Dave. I told him there was a sale at Hot Topic on black nail polish. He was there in a heartbeat. Okay. What's going on? It's your boy, Dead on Dave. And we are here for your copious review of Hell in a Cell. And as you guys know, we did try. He messed up my microphone. Jesus, Dark Dave. Next time you use my microphone, at least put it back. Good God. Yeah, Jesus. Who uses a microphone with him right there? Who does that? Anyway, we did a double reaction show for the Cubs World Series Game 5 and Hell in a Cell. We did both last night, and it was interesting. Your boy may have gotten a little inebriated, but hey, I survived, and that's all that truly matters. But I wanted to do a full-on review for Hell in a Cell, so here it is. And let's not gild the lily. Look, I'm not going to lead off with the main events. Well, one of them I will, but the other two I'm not. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through the matches really quickly. I'm going to go through all the matches, not necessarily in order. I'm going to save the two big ones for the end. There is a lot to talk about, so I don't want to take up too much time because it's Halloween. Happy Halloween, by the way, and I got stuff to do. So let's jump right into it, all right? The show started off with Roman Reigns and Rusev. Kicking off the show is probably the right call, but I think we can all agree by this point, the feud is absolutely dead. The match was far too long, but because it was Hell in a Cell, it's kind of unavoidable. You can't do a 5 to 10 minute Hell in a Cell match. It makes no sense. It would be too on the nose that they shouldn't have been there in the first place. Ending was poorly thought out, and not even poorly thought out other than it was just redundant, rehashed stuff that we've seen a million times. The Super Roman hashed / John Cena ending with the finisher with the help of the steps. John Cena usually uses that to do the AA on the steps, and that's how he wins in Hell in a Cell. We've seen him do that a couple times. Now Roman uses it as an assist to give a very weak-looking, but properly sold by Rusev, spear to get the victory. It's not that it was overly bad. It's just overly done at this point, so it is what it is. Ultimately, I'm glad that Roman won, and hopefully a new feud will help him grow and be that guy that WWE desperately wants him to be. As tired of these two as I am, and I think most of us are, it would be tough to say that they're both not stronger than they were when they started this feud, which is the point of all feuds, especially for a title. So I guess in a weird way, even with all of how long this went on and all the weird stuff, you kind of have to paint this feud as a success. I mean, I know it's going to be a little grudging. The match, while not super exciting, it was pretty damn boring, but it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't good by any stretch. So we'll just tuck that one away. Bayley and Dana Brooke. God, Dana looked amazing. Hot in the ring and out. She looked amazing. Probably as good as she has ever looked. Since they brought her in, this is the best she looked in the ring. And certainly I feel outside of it, she looked fantastic. She looks like she's getting back into good shape. She may have dropped a little bit of weight. Maybe Dolph Ziggler does her good. I have no question. But I am impressed with Dana. Just not sure of the point of this match, and more importantly, the outcome outside of trying to make Dana look stronger just by association with Bayley while keeping Bayley very strong. So I guess that is the point. I mean, it's not hard to understand. It just feels like they could have done a little bit more here, maybe a little bit of a shock, but you don't want to bury Bayley either. So they were kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Hopefully bigger things will await them both. Crowd was more into the finish than I thought it was, but I think mainly because just how over Bayley is. Dana has some... I'm not closing the book on Dana. I think this feud helped her out greatly. Bayley needs to go up from here, whether it be Nia Jax or it means Charlotte. We'll talk about that in a moment. But it's time to go up in competition. No more middling feuds for Bayley. It's time now. Cass and Enzo versus the Club. Look, not a bad match, but certainly nothing special. Another match that just kind of felt like a kickoff show match, a pre-show match. Didn't really understand the finish. The Club wins, and one would think now moves back in the title contention because it was fairly definitive. And now do they go back into contention with the New Day? We just did that to death. So I'm just kind of in a where do we go from here spot. How long can you slow burn Cass and Enzo? Because I think for a lot of people, their shtick is starting to get old. People, look, because people like to chant and people like group participation, Cass and Enzo are going to continue to be hot on the mic and everything, even though it's redundant, repetitive. We know what's going to be 0 dimes and all that stuff. I get it. However, I think they're really starting to be exposed as far as their in-ring work. It's not that they're not good. It's just their matches are very paint by numbers. You've seen one Cass and Enzo match. You really have seen them all. Enzo comes in. He gets beat up pretty good. Enzo gets some dance moves. Then he makes a comeback. He does a hot tag to Cass. Cass does his Empire Elbow, the Stinger Splash, and all of that stuff. That terrible boot that he does. And then some kind of wonky finish. I mean, that's every single Cass and Enzo match. So I'm glad that the Club won. I just don't necessarily understand the point of it. We need some shakeup in the tag team division. Either some new blood from NXT or maybe a trade between SmackDown because it's time for a change. Enough is enough and it's time for a change. Cruiserweight. Let's talk about the Cruiserweight Championship match. We did have a Cruiserweight match on the pre-show, but it really didn't do anything for me outside of Cedric Alexander getting a victory, and I'm always happy about that. But the title match, the crowd was absolutely dead. A lot of that has to do with the placement. We're going to talk about the Rollins and Kevin Owens match. You cannot follow that match with the Cruiserweight title match. No, it's just not going to work. People don't care enough about it, and it fell dead. The crowd was really out of it. Weird build didn't help. Kendrick trying to get TJP to let him win. None of it really made a whole lot of sense. However, for the match last night, I think this was their best match in the series. There was a couple of weird spots, but other than that, it was crisp. It was good action. It didn't really let up. I loved the coward sucker job. Oh, I love when they do that. When they play possum and when Kendrick feigned a knee injury or a head injury, whatever he was trying to feign, and suck it in TJP like that. I loved it. I got to say, the Brian Kendrick winning is a mild shock. It's not an over big shock because I think that WWE might already be cooling on TJP, but this is the Brian Kendrick, and to see him get this type of juice at this point, it's encouraging, it's good, and it is a little bit of a shock. The New Day versus Cesaro and Sheamus. Same old, same old. From the second New Day came out to the ending of this match. This was fucking the same thing we've seen a million times. That's not to say the match was bad, but it went exactly as the way that you would think it would. Disqualification win by Cesaro, for Cesaro and Sheamus. Cesaro had it won, though. He had it won if Kofi did not get involved with a Trouble in Paradise on Sheamus on the outside. Plain and simple, New Day is breaking the demolition record. That's it. That's all there is to it. But, God, it felt like this should have been a Raw match or something. For it to be a pay-per-view match, it just falls weird and it's out of place. And I think the New Day is running its course with its ring work. Look, I get that they tried to shake it up a little bit by having a different combination of guys, but the reality is their best team ring work wise is Kofi and Big E. And it's not even because Xavier is necessarily bad in the ring, but he's so much better on the outside, whether he's throwing Francesca at people or he's just being loud and obnoxious. That's a better role for him at this point with the New Day. Now, if he goes on his own, that's a different story altogether. But that's just my opinion on it. Let's talk about the two main events. We got all the undercard stuff, which I don't think was necessarily bad, but nothing super spectacular. Main event, that's where it is. The two real main events of the show. Yes, I know it was a triple main event, but obviously one was certainly less than the others. Let's talk about Kevin Owens and Rollins first, which clearly should have ended this show. I know some people are going to argue Sasha and Charlotte did a hell of a job and the crowd was in it, and that's kind of true. We're going to talk about that match in a moment, but there is no question about Kevin Owens and Rollins. That match was spectacular. And the fact that it was in the middle of the show hurt the rest of the show because matches that followed it could not live up. Nothing really worked after it outside of Sasha and Charlotte, but I even think that was affected. I think it was a little bit too much pressure for them. Kevin Owens Rollins should have been the main event. It was a fantastic match, mainly because it felt like a war. This is the one match of the night that felt like it belonged in Hell in a Cell. Kevin Owens' trash talk inside that cell for some reason looked even more menacing than it usually does. His trash talk is second to none. And for the first time, I feel on the opposite end there, Seth Rollins really looked like Seth freaking Rollins. Again, fantastic work out of him. I was really impressed. Busting out a unique and new, never before seen spot inside of Hell in a Cell is extremely difficult because we've seen everything. But let me tell you, that double table spot was breathtaking. From how Kevin Owens set it up, the Tinker Toy, the Erector set way that he did it, the looking up, the smirk on his face, to the unbelievable recovery and show of strength by Seth frickin' Rollins. Holy God. Owens is big, man. Owens is a big, fat guy. And for Rollins to double clutch like that with weird, all kinds of almost dropping him, and to be able to pump him up like that, that was incredible. And great work by Kevin Owens to not let that spot fall flat. I was a little surprised by the lack of Triple H in the match, but not necessarily disappointed. I feel that they could have built things a little bit differently going forward by having Triple H come out. You could have built two matches instead of just one. There's a bunch of things you could have done with Chris Jericho, maybe turning on Kevin Owens, but Triple H still costing Seth Rollins. That way you have two feuds built for the future. But that was the easy route, I think. I think by not pulling that card and keeping it just as Y2J as the catalyst, I think that they kept the focus on just this situation. And it really does tell us that Seth Rollins and Triple H will not be burned until Royal Rumble or probably WrestleMania. Kevin Owens is by far the correct call. And I'm also a fan of the big pivot they did at the end. If you were paying attention, you saw at the very end of the match, Y2J did come back and go after Seth Rollins, hitting him with a code breaker. Really nasty looking one too. Obviously pivoting Seth to Y2J. So they're not doing things the way that people thought they might. Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens may not be breaking up like they've teased a couple of times. May not be going after each other like they've teased a couple of times. It might have more length to that than that. And I kind of like it. I like when they go against conventional storytelling. Hopefully they don't run this out too long, but I think they're doing the right things at this moment. All right. Sasha and Charlotte. Okay. There's a lot of good here because it surpassed what I thought it was going to be. But it seems like for every good point, there's a yeah, but. And now let's get into it. I love the entrances. Both entrances were great. Both women beautiful. Sasha did the Escalade entrance again, but a little bit better coming out of the top. I thought that was cool. Charlotte being Charlotte is always wonderful. But I love them getting into the ring without the cell down yet. Seeing them stand in the center of the ring and the looks on their faces. These are because it felt like girls at that moment. They let their guard down, and Charlotte especially. They look like girls standing there with that cell the realization of what was about to happen to them. It was great emotional storytelling. I absolutely loved it. Then they go and rip off the Mick Foley Undertaker Hell in a Cell opening. They ripped it off. The only difference is Mick got thrown off the top of the cell and Sasha fell into a power bomb through a table. I mean, it both had a table, both were a fall. One was just executed differently, but because Sasha's a girl, it was complete. It had the same type of impact and feeling. They did the stretcher job. They were calling the match off. In fact, they were awarding the belt to Charlotte, which I did not see coming. So they did all of that to get Sasha to come off of the stretcher, just like Mick Foley did, and then the match actually began. It was the exact same concept. It was all pre-match, before the match work. Some people are going to dig it. Some people aren't going to dig it. I think with all of the things that Mick Foley has done to promote this match and be involved, I think it was a little bit too on the nose for me. I think they could have thought of something a little bit more original. If you're going to have the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match, I don't think you can just do something that the men did better and then make that your open. I don't agree with it. I think it's a really big disservice to the women, and frankly, a disservice to Mick Foley and The Undertaker in a lot of ways. Now, it's possible I'm overthinking it, but still, I'm just not a fan of it. Just my opinion. Match tried to go big several times throughout this, but man, every time that Sasha lands, she seems to land wrong. It's just terrifying. The bumps that she takes, the monkey flip, the getting tossed on the outside, nothing looks good. It looks too good. That's the problem. It looks real. It looks painful. It looks like she's dying, and that's not good. It seemed like they really did try to capture the same level of thrilling nature that we saw out of Kevin Owens and Rollins, but due to some really weak table breaks at points and then just downright exhaustion, it seemed like towards the end, it just couldn't keep up. There was no way it can live up to what we saw. It was not the best Hell in a Cell of the night. It was the second best of three. I mean, that's okay. But to end the show, I think it has to be executed better, and that is going to be a problem. But still, I'm trying not to be too hard on it. The finish is probably my biggest complaint. For all the things that they tried to do, for them to do that at that point makes no sense. Excuse me, I got a phone call. Sorry about that little interruption, my bad. But, family things do tend to happen. Anyways, the finish was strange, abrupt, and out of place. After everything they tried to do in that match, to end it with a, once again, non-table break. I don't know if they were trying to break a table. Charlotte simply didn't get the height out of Sasha that she would need to have done that. The rolling off the table into a natural selection, it just seemed way too set up. I didn't like it, man. It really didn't do anything for me. And honestly, I think an audible was called because I think there's more injury concerns to Sasha. Why lose it again in another pay-per-view, another big money match? It seemed like we're just a couple of months removed from Charlotte almost being out the door. Charlotte's run Ric Flair was exhausting. But since she split from him, things kind of have turned around a little bit. I do think she is starting to really make her own legacy. So maybe it's just a matter of them changing their mind and sticking with Charlotte as that top women's wrestler in the company, which I think is the right move. I still think she's a better finished product than Sasha. Plus, Sasha's so small. And I know what people are going to say. I don't really care. Like, oh, you're going to say she's too small, man. Daniel Bryan's too small. Britt Bayley's too small. Yeah. They're all out of wrestling. You can't take the bumps that a bigger person can. Plain and simple. You can't fall on your neck like that. You just can't do it. It doesn't work. You're going to get hurt and you're going to burn out, especially when you're kind of a spot monkey anyway. When you oversell and overbump, you're going to get hurt. And Sasha doesn't seem to be able to stay healthy. I just don't know if those are the factors of which to go back to Charlotte for a third time. I think it's the right move. And this is what I wanted to happen. I wanted Charlotte to win this match. I thought Sasha would, but The hometown curse once again rears its head, and Sasha Banks falls by the wayside, and Charlotte gets her third women's title reign. Where does she go from here? Bayley seems an obvious choice, but so does Nia Jax. Doesn't seem like it's going to get worked out anytime soon, because now we got the build to Survivor Series. And that's kind of a blessing, because now all the Raw storylines, all the SmackDown storylines all come to a grinding halt. They're all paused because now we build to Survivor Series. It's all team building. So we'll see what happens from here on out. As for Hell in a Cell, I think it was a middle of the road pay-per-view. I think Rollins and Owens was fantastic. Potential match of the year candidate. I think that you can make that argument. It's not going to win. It's not going to challenge some of the better matches that we've seen. But I think if you wanted to put it in the discussion, you're not going to get too many arguments about it. It is a great match. Honorable mention type deal. Great match. Probably one of the top 20 matches of the year, I would say. Charlotte and Sasha ends up really feeling like a social justice type spot. It didn't live up to a main event standing. When you do a main event build, a main event billing, you have to deliver. And I don't know if they did. It's certainly not bad, but the best parts of the match were the beginning of the match, and we've seen that exact same situation done better. In fact, it was done in a legendary fashion between Mick Foley and Undertaker, and that's part of the problem. It's why Ziggler doesn't work. You can't be a carbon copy, a homage, a second rate, whatever you want to call it, version of somebody in the first place. That's hard to do. But when you try to be that second rate carbon copy, whatever, of a legendary person like Ziggler is with Shawn Michaels, or this opening is with Hell in a Cell, Mankind, and Undertaker, then you're really running into issues. It's just, it doesn't work. So that's my thoughts on it. I think the pay-per-view is somewhere in a 6-ish type range. Maybe you can go a little bit higher because of how good Rollins and Owens were. And really, there was nothing terrible about the wrestling tonight. Weird booking, very strange match placement. But other than that, it was not an awful card. So what do you guys think? I want to hear from you. Hit me up in the comment section or on Twitter at ThatOnDaveV. I want to know what you guys thought of Hell in the Cell. Make sure you're with me tonight, Halloween night. We got Monday Night Raw, Trick or Treat edition. Undertaker might show up. Boogeyman definitely, but I got a feeling we're going to get a dong. I want the dong. We're going to get a gong of The Undertaker sometime tonight on Monday Night Raw. I'll be here. Maybe we'll have all kinds of spectacular things happening during the review. Make sure that you're here for that, all right? Thank you guys very much for joining me right here on Dead on Dave Productions. Like, subscribe, and share. And as always, if you don't have talent, have talented friends like everybody on my featured channels list. They're all amazing. Jeff Huffman, Gun Cannon, friggin' Colossal's Crazy's on there. Shot from the Point Productions, Tommy C. They're all there. Make sure you go check them out. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you next time. Keep it copious and peace. Happy Halloween, bitches. Dark Dave, go back to Hot Topic, you freak.